This show brought to you by Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Darren Ganji, and I get quite a few requests to give you guys a tour of my sim racing rig. What I've called Franken-Rig on many occasions. It's a little less Franken-Rig-ish now since I've made some changes over the past couple weeks, and here to give you guys a tour of it. Starting with the base, it's a platform that was originally used by Fanatec at trade shows and had a Rennsport cockpit attached to it. Since I took off the Rennsport a while back, I've had at least 4 different chassis sit on top of that. I had an R-Seat GTR, I think that was the brand, Human Racing, and then most recently I had just a hodgepodge 80/20 extrusion tubing rig. I'll show you some close-ups of extruded, extrusion, you call it an erector set. There's a bunch of different names for it, but basically it's aluminum tubing with channels in it that you can attach it and manipulate it in a bunch of different ways, and the stuff is awesome for sim racing rigs. So I've converted it from the 80/20 rig that I had that I just honestly didn't like. It was just kind of a mix match of parts, and it was solid and stable, but it was time for a change. And one of the biggest reasons why I changed it is because the guys at JCL Sim Racing created their own aluminum extruded tubing chassis with some parts that they've specifically cut and or fabricated for sim racing rigs, and it's called the To Be Faster setup. And I'm gonna do a full review on it coming up soon. They're gonna have a website available. They're based in France, so if you wanted a rig just like the one I'm going to show you here, it's going to be available. It's not cheap. You know, extruded tubing is not cheap stuff. They call it 80/20. They call it a bunch of different things, but it is not cheap material to work with. So let's start at the front of the cockpit and then work my way back. Actually, I'll jump around a little bit. Starting with the speaker system, it's made by Teuful, and they are available in Europe, and it's one of the few remaining components from the original setup that I had. It's a 5.1 surround sound system with a gigantic woofer. Man, this thing probably weighs about 30 pounds. I have the front 3 speakers mounted to this GT Omega triple screen stand, and the rear speakers directly mounted to the chassis here. So I just did a review of that stand, and if you haven't seen it, check our videos. I actually put a link here in the description. Next up, I have 2 transducers. Some of you may know them as Buttkickers, and basically it's a silent subwoofer. One is powered by this amp, which is a Buttkicker amp, and the other is a KWoon powered by this little amp. The Buttkicker is mounted in the front under the base of the platform, so under my pedals near the that woofer. And then the KWoon I have mounted into the back, the upright, or right in here of my seat. And both are powered by SimVibe in extension mode. And SimVibe is a piece of software by SimExperience that if you have Buttkickers or transducers, must have. So while I'm at the seat, this is a budget seat that reclines and has sliders. And this was on my original racing rig that I built about 10 years ago. And I got it from Jegs for about 150 bucks. It's been on the Deathmobile and on the PVC rig we did, and I've had it on a variety of rigs over the years, and I wanted something that reclined, and so that had a seat slider, so I decided to put it on the To Be Faster rig. I'll probably get another seat eventually, but I just ran the 24 hours of Daytona, about 5 hours worth of driving, and the thing was awesome. I ended up putting some cushions from the GT Omega Pro Supreme that I just reviewed on it, and that really helped with lumbar support and stuff like that. Moving back to the front, I have 3 22 ASUS monitors that are capable of running 120 Hertz. I have my PC sitting next to the chassis in a Corsair case. I used to call this thing the Stormtrooper. and it's got an Intel i5 4690K Haswell quad-core chip in it, and it's on an ASUS Maximus 7 Hero board. I have 8 gigs of GSkill Ripjaws X Series RAM, an SSD drive, and an NVidia GTX 780 Ti video card. And to run 120 Hz at all 3 monitors, I have 2 running through DVI cables, and 1 uses a DisplayPort to a DVI adapter. I honestly wish, because I have some problems with that DVI adapter on occasion. I haven't, knock on wood, let's knock on my head here. I haven't had any problems with that adapter lately, but every once in a while as it goes from game to desktop, that monitor will go snowy. But that allows me to run at 120 Hz. If those monitors were DisplayPort capable, I'd just run a straight DisplayPort to it, but you can't run higher than 60 Hz through an HDMI cable. So to maintain that 120 Hz and run higher frame rates, which in my opinion just creates a more fluid experience graphically for your eyes and to minimize input lag, it's a must. And then I also have an extra ASUS sound card installed to handle sim vibe, and then I use the onboard sound with an optical cable to run my 5.1 speaker system. I also run a direct line from my router so that my internet connection is as solid as possible. I do not recommend running wireless if you're going to be doing some serious racing. Too many variables and your latency could shoot through the roof. I would not do that. So in the middle of all this, I run either Derek Spear Designs pedals, or right now for that 24 Hours of Daytona, I ran a set of T500 pedals that have a prototype load cell in them. I love the DSD pedals, and I use them for testing leading up to the 24 Hours of Daytona, but honestly, that brake is so stiff, I probably would have hurt myself seriously if I would have tried to run it all 6 hours with those pedals. And I honestly noticed I was a little more consistent with the T500 pedals because it just didn't require so much brake pressure. Again, I love the pedals, they're great design, but I like my T500 pedals too, so that's what I'm currently running for my pedals. For my wheel, I'm using a Thrustmaster T300, and then I'll swap out rims depending on the type of car I'm racing. I have 2 button boxes. One is an SRX Innobox Pro on my left, and then on my right is an older Derek Spear Designs Race King. And then for my dash or display, I use a Sim Instruments dash, and I have it mounted right above the Innobox. To handle my gated and some sequential shifting, I have a Thrustmaster TH8A. I also have this Logitech G430 headset to handle chat functions, and I can convert it to full audio if I want to, in case my family's sleeping or whatever. But I tend to just run the 5.1. That's the way to go. And then I can use those for chat, so I can hear, I can close off what's going on with the car and hear, like on iRacing, I can hear the chat, and then I use the microphone to talk with. Finally, my keyboard sits to my right on this tray that I had from an old GamePod chassis, and I use a Logitech K400 keyboard that has a touchpad built into it, so I don't have to have a mouse. Touchpad's just much easier, just one unit, put it in your lap, you can do everything. I don't do any other gaming on that rig, so it works perfect. How much does all of this cost? I honestly don't know. I mean, I'd like to thank all of my sponsors and companies for sending me a variety of items to review over the years. There are a lot of things that I've paid for myself, like the PCs, all out of my pocket, a couple other things here and there, but I'd like to thank my sponsors for all the cool gear that I have sitting behind me, or again, companies that I've reviewed their products. I would guess though, if you were to buy all this stuff to make for yourself, it'd probably be about the $5,000 range. So, there you have it. I'm gonna be doing features like this to showcase your rigs out there, and I'm gonna try to do them a couple times a month. I already have a few planned. There's a guy locally that just built up a sim rig. He'd contacted me, lives blocks from me. I'm gonna go over to his house, showcase his rig, and it's really cool what he did. I think he built like a Rick Motec style base and then built a tube chassis or roll cage around it with PVC, painted it black, and I thought, what a cool way to start this. If you would like your rig showcased, email me at Darren@ISRTV or your race room, Darren@ISRTV.com, and get me some videos, whether you use your phone, or if you have a camera, whatever it may be, get me some video, lots of images, write up a story, just like I did, telling me about all your parts with images or video of all of those parts. And I'll do a show here for you on Inside Sim Racing so I can share it with the world, because I love seeing them. I know you guys out there love seeing them, getting ideas, whatever it may be. And then people share them in our forums. Come to our forums at isrtv.com/forums. Go to the sim rig/chassis section and post your rig there for everybody to see. Again, I love checking them out, and so does everybody else. And people can comment on them there and talk about them and check them out. It's really cool. Also, come to our website for daily news. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter for that same news, and subscribe to us here on YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. That and a thumbs up. So that's going to wrap this up. My sim rig, and I hope you enjoyed it. For Inside Sim Racing, I'm Darren Ganji. See you guys next time.